Level 1. The Pipeline. No one begins their journey at Delta. It simply doesn't happen. Delta chooses candidates who have already showcased their skills in units that are the zenith of most military trajectories. You initially serve as an infantryman, a ranger, or a Green Beret. You undergo basic training, airborne school, ranger school. You earn your tab and deploy to conflict zones. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, locations that may not make headlines because the missions there remain classified. You dedicate 4 to 6 years amassing a portfolio that many soldiers would consider a crowning achievement. As a member of the Ranger Battalion, 75th Regiment, you've completed 3 combat tours by the age of 25. You've stormed buildings in Fallujah, secured a mountainside in the Korengal, and fast-roped from a Black Hawk onto a rooftop in Mosul at 2 a.m. You hold the rank of E5 or E6, sergeant or staff sergeant. You excel at your role, and both you and your peers recognize this. One day, a notice appears on the bulletin board at Fort Bragg, an invitation to a recruitment briefing. No unit name, no insignia, just a time, a building number, and a vague description of a special operations team formed for missions requiring rapid response and the precise application of diverse, unique special operations skills. You decide to attend the briefing. A civilian-clad man stands at the front providing minimal information. He mentions the selection process lasts 4 weeks, and that historically, the dropout rate is over 90%. He explains that if you're chosen, you'll be part of a unit that isn't officially recognized within a command structure that doesn't publicly acknowledge its operations. He omits details about the unit's mission, where you'll be deployed, what equipment you'll use, or your superiors. Instead, he provides the date to arrive if you're interested. You show up. Level 2. The Selection. The selection and assessment take place in the Appalachian Mountains near Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Spanning about 4 weeks, its purpose is to break you. Not physically, though that will happen as well, but mentally. The course is designed to strip away every external support system you've depended on and reveal what lies beneath. You ruck, carrying a 45-pound pack along with water and a weapon across increasingly challenging terrain. The distances grow daily, 18 miles, then 25, then 40. The culmination is a 40-mile solo land navigation trek through the mountains without a defined route or a specific completion time. You're not informed of the distance or when you need to finish. No feedback is given, neither positive nor negative. The cadre observes silently, offering no motivation, correction, or encouragement. Navigating alone with just a map, a compass, and your stamina, you reach a point where a man marks your card and hands you the next grid coordinate. No conversation, just the next step. This silence embodies the selection process. Most military training includes cadre who yell, motivate, and discipline. Here, the indifference manifests as a more profound challenge than any drill sergeant's anger, because it compels you to find your own motivation from nothing. Candidates drop out in droves. They sit beside the trail, raise their hands, and get picked up by a truck, disappearing without any sense of shame or ceremony. Of the 120 candidates who began your class, only 12 will be chosen. You are one of those 12. When you hear the news, you feel nothing, neither relief nor pride. Exhaustion has burnt through all emotions, except the awareness that whatever comes next will be even more challenging. Level 3, the OTC Operator Training Course. This lasts 6 months. It's here that they shape you into something the conventional army lacks a term for. You master close-quarters battle with a precision that makes your ranger training seem like mere basics. You fire thousands of rounds weekly, transitioning from pistol in under a second, moving from rifle to pistol in tight spaces, and shooting with inches to spare around hostages. You clear rooms using live ammunition, and engage with live role players, standing alongside the targets since Delta training doesn't involve simulated consequences. Miss, and someone gets hurt. You learn breaching techniques, mechanical, ballistic, explosive, thermal, gaining the skills to open any door on the planet within 3 seconds, whether it's a lock, hinge, wall, or fortified safe room door. You develop the ability to navigate structures with such speed and force that occupants won't have time to comprehend what's occurring before it's over. You acquire tradecraft, including surveillance detection routes, maintaining cover identities, maneuvering through foreign cities unnoticed, and covertly meeting a source in a cafe. Delta operators shift between soldier and spy more gracefully than any other military unit. This transition starts at OTC. You also learn advanced driving techniques, performing evasive maneuvers, executing J-turns, implementing ramming techniques, and conducting high-speed convoys in urban settings. You are taught field medicine, not buddy aid but surgical trauma management, learning to decompress a tension pneumothorax with a needle in a corridor while rounds are impacting mere feet away. On graduation day, there's no pomp or family present. You receive a pager, Kunch, or its equivalent, and are informed of your assignment to an assault squadron, A, B, C, or D. You are now an operator. Here, the designation carries a different weight compared to anywhere else in the military. Level 4. The new operator. You are assigned to an assault troop comprising about 16 operators. Being the newest member in a unit where average operators boast 8 to 12 years of special operations experience means you must prove yourself again. The skills acquired in OTC serve as your foundation. Throughout a continuous training cycle, your troop builds upon these skills. Training occurs for 10 months a year, with deployments filling the remaining 2. Or, alternatively, you may train for 6 months and deploy for 6, depending on global crises. In a single month, you shoot more ammunition than most infantry battalions do in an entire year. You repeatedly move through the kill house until close-quarters battle sequences are ingrained in your nervous system like the instinct to breathe. Enter. Clear left. Clear right. Target. Target. Hostage transition. Next room. You repeat this process thousands of times until you can execute it in total darkness using only sound and feel. Your initial deployment sends you to a location you'll never reveal. You fly in an MH-60 Blackhawk operated by a Night Stalker pilot from the 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment, who can land the aircraft on a rooftop the size of a parking space under the cover of night with no lights. You breach a compound. The door blown off its hinges in a controlled detonation sounding like the snap of a divine finger. From breach to clearance, you navigate the structure in 90 seconds. Your target is a high-value individual whose name was provided to you merely 6 hours ago in a briefing and whom you will forget 6 hours post-mission, because the next target is already being developed. You flex-cuff him, cover his head with a bag, and escort him to the helicopter. 4 hours later, you find yourself cleaning your weapon on a FOB while munching on a protein bar. No one will ever discover the actions you took that night. That's the nature of the job. Level 5. The experienced operator. After 3 years in the unit, you've completed 6 deployments across Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Africa, and locations in Southeast Asia and South America that go unreported in any official documentation. You've engaged in more than 200 direct action raids, breaching compounds in Baghdad, Salder City, clearing cave complexes in Tora Bora, and capturing a high-value target from a moving vehicle on a highway in a country you can't name. You can discern by a man's movements whether he reaches for his waistband, if he's reaching for a weapon or a phone. And you've been accurate every time with zero margin for error. You're chosen for a reconnaissance troop, or Recce, which is reserved for the most seasoned operators. Recce doesn't execute breaches, it observes. You carry out close target reconnaissance on objectives that assault teams will engage with days or even weeks down the line. Often operating in 2- or 4-man teams, you frequently don civilian attire, work in denied territories, and manage to do so for extended periods without resupply or communication. You might find yourself in a hide site 300 meters away from a target compound for 72 continuous hours, confined in a hole you dug with an entrenching tool, camouflaged with local foliage, meticulously documenting every person who enters or exits the area. You record each vehicle's plate number, every delivery, and the daily patterns of life that analysts will utilize to construct the assault plan. Movement is forbidden. Speaking above a whisper is unacceptable. You find ways to manage biological needs discreetly, as any sign of human presence can jeopardize the mission. The level of patience required diverges significantly from assault work, which is an explosion of violence encapsulated in seconds. Recce work demands discipline stretched over days. Both roles necessitate the same core ability, being in the precise location, executing the expected actions when every impulse within you urges you to move. Level 6. The team leader. Now, you oversee a team of 4 operators. You are accountable for their training, readiness, performance during operations, and their very survival. A Delta team leader wields authority that doesn't align with conventional military rank. You might be an E7, leading others who are also E7s or E8s, as rank within the unit is secondary to capability and role. The hierarchy is intentionally flat. Charlie Beckwith established this structure after learning from the SAS that strict rank-based hierarchies can result in fatalities during small unit missions where ground-level observations are crucial to decisions made by commanders. You plan operations. You receive a targeted assignment from the intelligence unit, a collection of images and signals, both intelligence and human intelligence, providing information about who resides in the compound, their sleeping arrangements, the weapons they possess, and the timing of guard rotations. You formulate a strategy, practice it using a mock setup, brief the troop commander, and execute it at 0200 hours. Once on site, you must make split-second decisions that will be scrutinized by both lawyers and generals for months on end. A man approaches a corner with something in his hand. You must decide whether to shoot or refrain. The object could be a weapon, a cell phone, or even a baby. The debriefing will reveal the truth. You feel the burden of these choices, as the only alternative is to hesitate. And hesitation in a corridor could result in casualties for your team. You carry the weight of every decision you've made, the choices that were right, the uncertain ones, and those that haunt you awake at 3 a.m., in a way that debriefings or legal reviews cannot resolve. The lawyers weren't present in the corridor, and they did not witness what you saw in the fractions of a second you had to make a choice. After a mission, you might find yourself in a bar in Fayetteville with your team, and no one discusses the missions because there's no need to. The shared silence is more genuine than any words exchanged. When your wife inquires about the trip, you respond with, "Fine." She stopped pressuring you for details long ago. At level 7, you're the senior operator, troop sergeant, major, or troop commander, depending on your status as enlisted or officer. You oversee 16 to 20 operators across various teams. You hold tactical authority on every operation your troop carries out. The troop commander outlines the strategic framework, while it is your responsibility to execute it on the ground. You've served in the unit for 8 years, completed over 300 combat operations, and your body reflects the toll. You have ruptured eardrums from breaching charges, a knee reinforced with titanium from a rooftop incident, compressed vertebrae from countless parachute landings and helicopter insertions, and years of carrying body armor for 14 hours a day. The VA will classify you as 80% disabled upon your departure, though the actual figure is higher. You won't admit this because acknowledging damage feels like recognizing limitations, and operators do not have limitations. They find ways around them. You guide the new operators as someone had once guided you, not through speeches, but through your actions, showing them how to clear a room at 42 as you once did at 28. They learn from the calmness of your voice over the radio when a breach goes awry and the hallway is blocked, forcing alternate strategies in the space between 2 heartbeats. You've lost friends, not just colleagues or acquaintances, but brothers. These are men whose children call you uncle, and whose wives reach out when something breaks at home during deployments, knowing you're the only one who understands this life. You've trained together, deployed together, and bled side by side in hallways across 3 continents. The unit memorializes its fallen, not in the way the CIA honors its operatives, but with personal photographs lining a corridor few will ever traverse, in a building most will never enter, in a compound that remains unknown to the outside world. You pass by those images each morning, knowing each name by heart. At level 8, you ascend to being the command squadron commander, a lieutenant colonel, 05. You lead 60 to 80 operators, along with support personnel and an assault squadron, the most formidable small unit on the planet. You hold responsibility for every trigger pulled, every breach executed, every bullet fired. You report to the unit commander, a full colonel, who answers to the JSOC commander, a 2- or 3-star general, who in turn answers to the Secretary of Defense and the President. This is the hierarchy. 4 individuals stand between your operators and the Oval Office. When the President approves a mission to eliminate or capture a high-value target, that order descends through the chain to you, where you adapt it into a plan that sends your men through a door in a country that may or may not know they are present. You deploy your squadron as a task force, incorporating your operators with 160 helicopters, plus Air Force combat controllers and rangers for quick reactions, along with ISA signals intelligence and CIA case officers who develop the target. You conduct operations every night during your deployment rotation. Every single night. Hit, exploit, move. The intelligence gathered from one operation generates the target for the next, maintaining a relentless pace. During the peak of operations in Iraq from 2005 to 2008, Delta squadrons executed 10 to 15 raids per night across various provinces, methodically dismantling the Al-Qaeda network in Iraq, one cell leader at a time, creating the longest sustained special operations campaign in American history. The exhaustion is cumulative, invisible, and unyielding. Your operators refrain from complaining because they are operators, but you can see it in their reaction times, their decision-making, and the way they behave in the briefing room before a mission. You monitor the human cost of continuous combat in individuals who will never admit that such a cost even exists. At level 9, you transition to being a retiree. After 12, 15, or even 20 years, your exit remains understated. No parades, no press releases, and no acknowledgement in any official documents of your presence. Your service record merely states you were assigned to a staff element of the Department of the Army at Fort Bragg. That's all. The missions you've conducted, the targets you've captured or killed, the hostages you've freed, the countries you've worked in, none of this is accessible to civilians. You find new employment in private military contracting, security consulting for a Fortune 500 company, or the CIA's Special Activities Center, which heavily recruits from Delta and DevGru for operations that require plausible deniability. Some operatives go to the agency, continuing their work in the same regions under a different banner. While the pay triples, the core responsibilities are unchanged, the silence persists, and the disconnection from everyday life remains. You attempt to engage with civilian life, navigating through traffic, attending your daughter's school performances, and waiting in line at the grocery store behind a man arguing over a coupon. Yet your mind drifts back to the last compound you breached, where a man lunged at you with lethal intent. You shot him twice in the chest and once in the head before stepping over his body to clear the next room. Now, standing in a grocery store, you struggle to merge these two disparate realities, ultimately deciding to stop trying. You seek therapy. Perhaps the unit has become better at addressing mental health, recognizing that 300 combat operations can leave invisible scars. However, the culture of silence that once made you effective also hinders your ability to articulate your experiences to someone who wasn't there. You realize the only individuals who understand are those you served with, so you reach out, and they reach back. And you meet in places where you can sit with your back against the wall, discussing the things you cannot share with anyone else. This suffices. It must. At level 10, a cycle begins anew. Somewhere at Fort Liberty, previously known as Bragg, a sergeant in the 75th Ranger Regiment peruses a recruitment announcement. He's 26, with 4 combat deployments under his belt, a Ranger tab, combat infantry badge, and a Purple Heart he seldom discusses. Recognized as one of the finest soldiers in his battalion, he is well aware of it, and so is his chain of command. That's precisely why this notice attracted his attention. He contemplates the selection process, the mountains, the 40-mile ruck with no time limit, the daunting 90% attrition rate. He thinks about the operators alongside whom he's worked during joint operations, The quiet professionals in civilian attire and beards who appeared at his FOB and vanished 48 hours later, leaving nothing behind but shell casings and intelligence reports. He aspires to join their ranks, yet he remains unaware of the true costs involved. He doesn't understand the 300 raids, the damaged eardrums, the rebuilt knees, the marriages strained under the burden of secrets and absences, or the unique isolation that stems from accomplishing extraordinary tasks that are impossible to articulate to anyone outside the compound. He knows the selection date, and he knows where to report. He will be there. They all do. The best among them always gravitate towards the most daunting challenges, because something deep inside compels them to ascertain their own worth. The unit will provide that answer. It always does. Most will not make it. Those who do will become a part of the world's most